Hi everybody. So for this is going to be kind of our last kind of lecture of this semester, and I wanted to address how to organize and how to write your argumentative position paper. And the first thing that you want to remember are the essential elements that your argument needs, and all of you have an issue that's open for debate. All of you have a position on that issue, and then of course you have reasons for that position and evidence to support your reasoning from experience, expert opinion, research, and statistics. Of course, you'll also need your background information as well as your counterclaim. So the first thing that you want to consider is the role of your audience. And understanding your audience is key when you are writing any kind of paper, but specifically persuasive writing, which of course this is. The first assumption you want to make is that there is a reader who will not agree with you. The other considerations you want to consider are what does the audience know and what do they need to know in terms of terminology or definition and things like that. What is their position on the issue if they don't agree with you, and what their objections to your argument might be. And as we talked about last week, this is specifically helpful when constructing your counter argument. So the structure of your essay is going to look a little bit like this. You're going to have your introduction with your thesis statement, then your background information, or establishing that context for your reader that we talked about. What's the role of what's the controversy? What information background-wise do I need to know in order for your argument to make sense? And then of course you're going to have your reasons or your points that justify your position along with your evidence, and then your counter argument or the opposing view with the refutation, followed by your conclusions. Organizationally, you'll need a title to your essay, your introduction with your thesis statements, and then your body paragraphs with your constructed topic sentences, the building of your main points, countering the opposition, and your conclusion. So what should your introduction look like? Your introduction should provide a brief introduction to your issue or your topic. And I would use information that you used for your topic proposal, as well as a way to kind of hook your readers in, to draw your readers in. And you want to consider that maybe you could provide some background information here, but I always suggest that you provide that in a separate paragraph. Your thesis or your claim, the most important sentence in your paper, is going to have those three things: your topic, your stance, and your so what. And remember, don't list your thesis as your XYZ with your 3 points that you intend to make in your paper, and I'll give you guys an example of this in just a second. Your body paragraphs should can be ordered in several different ways depending on the topic and the purpose of your argument, but my favorite way to organize the argumentative paper is to begin with maybe your not so strongest point and work and build towards your strongest point. Each of your body paragraphs, as we've discussed all semester long, should begin with your topic sentence. What's the point that you're trying to make in that paragraph? And it's going to relate directly to your position or your thesis statement. Think back to your 3 good reasons for believing that your claim is valid, or at least your first point in why you believe in the position that you're engaging with. And then after you provide your point, and remember, topic sentences cannot be quotes or information from your sources. They have to be something from you. This is you want the first word and you want the last word. So build your point by explaining the topic sentence, followed by your illustration. You want to look at your sources of support and introduce that evidence with signal phrases or in full sentences, followed by stating your evidence. So use your sources, integrate them into your own sentences. So I want to make a point here when talking about using your evidence. You have to use direct quotations from your sources. You have 5 of them. You have to use each of your references in this paper. That is one of the key components of this rubric. If your sources are not used in your paper, you will automatically start off with a C. I don't mean just sticking them onto a reference page at the end. You have to use those sources with direct quotations and paraphrases intertextually in your essay. After you state and provide your illustration or your evidence, then you have your explanation where you explain your evidence. How should we read or interpret the evidence that you're providing us? How does this evidence prove the point that you're trying to make in the paragraph? What's your interpretation of this? So don't just bump quotes and provide all of this information. Tell me how I should read it. Tell me how I should interpret it, or how you've interpreted it, so that it makes your point make sense. Followed by a concluding sentence where you end your paragraph that reasserts how the topic sentence of the paragraph helps us better understand and prove your position's overall claim, or prove your paper's overall claim. In other words, how does the evidence and your point relate to your overall so what from your thesis statement? And you'll do this for each of your points of evidence, or not your points of evidence, but your points or your reasons. So you should have 3 main body paragraphs, and each of them should provide your point, your evidence or your illustration, and then your explanation of interpreting the evidence and how it connects back to your overall so what. After you have your 3 body paragraphs, you want to provide your counterclaim. Now, you don't have to put your counterclaim after your positions. You can put your counterclaim before you build on your 3 positions. Wherever you want to put it, whatever makes sense to you is fine, but your counterclaim needs to be in your paper somewhere. And I typically think that after you put your 3 points or your positions, then you can introduce the other side, because it makes it all the more stronger when you hammer home in your rebuttal. So your counterclaim, remember, is where you think, where you acknowledge the other position. What's the strongest reason someone would have to disagree with you, and address it. So that's the acknowledgement of the opposition. Then remember that another part of the counterclaim is where you offer concessions. Validate what they value in some way, or qualify it if it's appropriate. And then after you offer those concessions, that's where you put in your rebuttal and bring it back to your argument and explain why you're still in favor of your position. After your counterclaim, then of course there's a conclusion, and the conclusion should have kind of 2 parts or 2 sections. And in the first part, it's where you restate your thesis in different words. Remind your reader again what your argument or your position is. And then part 2, the important part, is where you address the so what. Why should we care in the first place? What's the takeaway? And look at the larger implication, or provide a more complex understanding of the subject of your paper. Your conclusion could also You can also choose to reiterate a call to action or speculate on the future of your topic when appropriate, but your conclusion is not a place where you want to raise new claims or raise new points or offer anything that you haven't already addressed in your paper. So this is it in a nutshell on all of the elements that you need to have in your argumentative paper. I suggest that you take a look at the outline provided in this section as well in Canvas, and look at how to structure your paper in kind of an organized format. So let me know if you have any questions about the various points that you want to put in your paper, but just to kind of reiterate one more time everything that you're going to have to include in your paper, your introduction with your thesis, background information or context, your points and your evidence with your explanation, spelled plus your explanation, and then your counterclaim and your conclusion, your two-part conclusion. So let me know if you have any questions, and hold it together. You guys are almost done, and let me know if you have any questions.